name is Stewart Bennett, and I'm actually from Canopy Growth, and this is Rullo from Strength of Hope. And we certainly welcome you for this presentation of how to navigate the CBD jungle. This is a focus on today's best practices of how to be successful in this ever-growing market, this ever-changing marketplace, and be able to identify the risks and opportunities of what to do to make yourself more successful. So that I understand that our session here is after lunch and we're more at the end of the day, but I do promise that we will make this entertaining for you. So hopefully that's a good thing. So it's great to see everyone. As I mentioned before, I pass it over to Alex here. I'll go a little bit into my bio. I'm actually the head of contract manufacturing for Canopy Growth. If you're familiar with Canopy, we are the largest cannabis company in the world. However, we have a real small footprint here in the States, and so my job gets to be to work with different third-party contract manufacturers in order to help produce our product and get it in the marketplace, and certainly allow us to be successful and be creating revenue. So, very excited to chat about some of the successes that we've had and what has, basically what makes Canopy tick. But at the same time, we'll pass it over to you.
Great. My name is Rullo. I'm the Executive Vice President of Strength of Hope. We are a local company here based in Tigard, Oregon. We are currently in a little over 5,000 stores nationwide, including CVS and Dollar General, Whole Foods, and a few others. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the CBD side from a brand perspective, including retail, distribution, merchant account, and processing, as well as talking a little bit about marketing and marketing opportunities for e-commerce. And I focus mostly, my company focuses, I focus on the retail side, national retail sales, so I work with distributors, I would work with retailers directly, and I also help with our e-commerce and marketing.
Thank you. So let's chat with the room here. So, how many growers do we have in the room currently? So, like growers. What about producer processors? And what about more third-party ancillary service providers? Kind of like what I used to do back in the day. Awesome.
How about brands? Any CBD brands out there? Okay.
There you go. Well, certainly we want to. This is for the most part an open forum. It really is, a question and answer scenario. So we'll provide the question. We're going to give a little bit of the answer, but we'd love your feedback as we go through a lot of these and really understand what you're looking to gain from this particular session. So, question number one, as I flip my notes here, is really to provide. I wanted to provide an exceptional overview of what products are really hot coming into the marketplace. So, if you take a look at my great sheets that I passed out. If you didn't get one, I apologize. My printer broke while printing these. But there's 3 sheets: the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and the flavonoids. My favorites. So everybody knows THC and CBD, but have you seen some of the updated compounds coming through more on the CBG side? THCV, CBC. Are you guys all familiar with those? Yeah, believe it or not. Most of these, in my opinion, I learned about a lot of these several years ago at this show, but it seems like Oregon's leading the way. So CBG, which is obviously the granddaddy of them all, that certainly helps to, very antidepressant, very antibacterial, really provides a great focus for the mind when you use it in a product. And then there's THCV, as you can tell, very anti-inflammatory again, but it's a food suppressant as well. You're trying to make those products. And then CBC, anti-inflammatory and anti-migraine. But why do I mention all these? So certainly if you're trying to create a product, you have to have something special and unique. Very industry disrupting, and I think a lot of these, now that the technology has allowed us to really isolate these compounds, they got to be put into some of these products moving forward. But the same with terpenes. Take a look at the little terpene wheel. Pretty straightforward. These odorous compounds not only come on the hemp side, but they're within fruits and vegetables. These can really provide an extra level of, let's say, if you're helping go to help sleep, you need something for focus. So the linalool, the beta-caryophyllines, all great ones. And then finally, my newest favorite additive here, the secondary metabolites, if you want to call them, the flavonoids. this is going to be big. Obviously, flavonoids occur in hemp, of course, but every fruit, citrus, basically it's the color that you see in the plant, but at the same time it does provide a lot of health benefits. So again, why do I mention these? Because these are the things that are really going to separate your product from the rest of the marketplace. And believe it or not, Oregon has a lot of these available. So I encourage you to experiment, try these, and yeah, get some good success from them. Because certainly from a Canopy growth standpoint, we are. And I'll pass it over to you.
Great. So one of the things I've been asked about recently regarding sales and e-commerce as well as marketing, there are a lot of challenges that people face in this industry regarding Facebook advertising, Google advertising, marketing in general, getting onto DRTV commercials, right? There are a lot of challenges with this right now because of the strict guidelines that some of these companies have put on for CBD companies. So, for example, with Facebook, you can only advertise topical products in certain ways. Okay, with Google, usually it's the same thing. They can be a little bit tricky to deal with, so you have to really navigate that carefully. Having backup accounts is really important. So I'll give you one example so you can take this home. When you're setting up a Facebook account, you want to have a separate account that handles all of your marketing, so all of your advertising, because if that gets closed, you have your main Facebook page set up to where it's not going to affect you. So when you're advertising, make sure you have a separate page, okay? Also, when it comes to topical products, you only can advertise topically. Have a separate website to drive business to. That's not your main site, and it's only topical focused. Don't even mention CBD in the ad in any capacity. Hemp might be okay, you might get away with it, but realistically, if you just focus on the image and you focus on clever wording without actually using CBD or hemp, that's where you're going to have more success, okay? It's all about algorithms, it's all about being creative. Same thing with Google. Google's a little bit easier to deal with, but again, topical products only. Make sure you drive it to a separate website to get the sales. And then, in regards to another big question, merchant processing. So we've all likely have had experience with Elevon shutting down in May. That caused a lot of issues for a lot of CBD companies in general. We have found some success with others, but you want to find a really good broker to work with. I do have a couple of contacts, but make sure that when you're vetting accounts, make sure that they will actually take CBD. Some say they will, and then they usually don't. It doesn't pan out, okay? If you have questions, I don't want to name out specific people. I do have some connections. Visit us at our Strength of Hope booth at the marketplace, and I'd be happy to provide some contacts. I have a couple that I can work with. And market saturation. So here's an issue that CBD companies are dealing with right now. We have 3,000 companies in the country that are CBD brands, okay, or at least some form of a brand. What's going to happen is when the FDA does officially release their rules, and with the new rules with USDA, these will make it a lot harder for CBD companies to be successful, because you're going to have stricter testing guidelines, you're going to have stricter rules and regulations that you have to follow, and a lot of brands won't be able to keep up. If that is a concern of yours, of course, make sure that you have a good attorney to go through all of the various components. So your wording has to be, you have to be very careful with your wording, you have to be very careful with what you're saying. Stay compliant, make sure that you are following the rules locally and nationally, okay? So we sell in California, we sell in Utah, we sell in Florida. All three of those states have completely different rules for CBD, so make sure that every state that you're selling in, you are compliant. Again, having a good attorney who knows what they're doing and can help you navigate that is going to save your company. I think there were 15 letters that went out recently to various CBD companies from the FDA saying, hey, you're making claims, you can't be saying that. To avoid that, again, make sure that you're following the rules. Don't make claims that are not necessary.
And that's great. But anybody went to Expo West last year? Was there anybody that went down to California? At Expo West just last year, I think I visited 10 CBD booths where their product, the CBD product, claimed that it cured cancer. Yes, it has been a year, but at the same time, just don't be silly. You can't make these type of claims. And our packaging, it's a great point, just really just has the lifestyle or the health and wellness piece on the packaging itself. But yeah, they're going to, I think the FDA will ultimately really put some guidance and enforcement activity behind that. It certainly will. But
Absolutely.
love to know when. Anybody know when?
Right.
The FDA will get that done?
Yeah.
I'll just talk a little, I know there aren't a lot of brands in here, but it will be good for you to know from a brand perspective what we're dealing with so that you can be aware of what's going on in the industry. So we work with several distributors throughout the country to get it, that have helped us get into retail. CVS is one of them. And as you deal with distributors, you have hidden costs, you have rules and regulations that you have to follow that are company specific. So you have companies that are going to dictate when you have to ship product, when it has to be delivered. Some of these some of these retail brands in particular have windows where if you ship a product to their distribution center and you've missed the window, they're going to charge, that's automatically a $100 fee just for being late. So if you don't hit that window, and it might have nothing to do with you, it might have everything to do with the trucking company you hired, and you're still going to be the one that gets dinged. You're going to have fees where if there are returns. So if you get a return, they're going to charge you the full price of the product, on top of the fact that they're going to then send it to a facility that will dispose of the product, so that's another fee. And then of course, because you're not getting the product back, you can't resell it. And then you have the fee of actually disposing of the product too. So all of these little tiny costs will add up. Be prepared if that's something that you're looking into getting into, both with distributors, both with retailers. There are a lot of hidden costs. So if your margins are 40% and you're working with the distributor, they'll probably take 5 to 10% depending on the distributor. And then you have hidden costs. I anticipate whenever we do a new retail situation, if it's 40% margins for them, expect it to be the other way around. Your margins will be 40%. Okay, so if you're at 50%, imagine 20, I'd estimate 20 to 25% margins. Okay, so just anticipate this 20% gap.
And that's a great point.
Yeah.
I just wrapped up 3 days of doing one-on-one interviews with different companies, TJ Maxx, Bed Bath & Beyond, everybody looking to jump on, procuring a lot of the CBD products. And you're exactly right. The average margin that they're looking to make is between 40 and 75%. So think about that, of all the additional costs you need to work with, the margin that you need, the resources and time, and the distribution. Make sure you have those tools in place to be able to, understand returns, lost product, all those other details. Pretty cool.
Yeah, when we launched with CVS in March last year, we had a very limited window of getting the product, and the initial order was 60,000. It ended up being about 32,000 products. We had to deliver to CVS, and we found out in January last year, January 4th actually, we were told it was going to be 60,000 products, and we had to have it delivered by February 15th. Yeah, you can imagine when you panic and you realize, wow, I am not prepared to handle this. What do you do? It ended up being less. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're going to go into retail, make sure that you understand what they're going to demand of you, because retail they can be very demanding. They also could be very slow. They may only order, maybe a case a store. They may order 3 products a store. They may order a lot more for the distribution centers to have on stock as they're selling through. It just really depends. So be prepared. Also, you're going to have to anticipate marketing dollars. You're going to spend $20,000 to $25,000 a month just in marketing to stay in the stores, because if you're not selling, they're not going to keep you. So you have to anticipate that too. Yeah, so anyway, that's kind of retail. We're going to ask for questions in a few minutes, so if you have other things regarding that, I'd be happy to answer, but I want to turn it over to Stewart.
Yeah, you guys want to talk about some fun stuff? Contract manufacturing, that's what I do for a living. How many people know what contract manufacturing is here? How many people use CMOs or contract manufacturers? Oh, not many at all. Oh, awesome, okay. So contract manufacturers are basically outside companies. They're co-packers, they're white labelers that help take and manufacture your product in their particular warehouse. So, why would you use a CMO? And I'll give you 3 great reasons why. One is just the cost aspect. A lot of these groups basically have the equipment, they have the resources, they have everything ready to go that you don't have to spend the CapEx dollars for, which is great. Number 2 is really the quickness to market. So because they have everything ready to go, because they have that experience, they can ultimately turn around your product quicker without you having to worry. And then number 3 is more the accreditations. They have the experience, whether they're GMP certified, NSF audited, CFR 111, 110, those are the things that you're certainly looking for that you don't have to go through in order to produce your product and really work towards getting there. So I know there's a lot of different avenues of people here that are working, but it's certainly something to take a look at. And I'll give you an example. We have some celebrity brands that we're working with, and we're working to create a gummy product. So we have 3 different SKUs that we need to work with, but we kept going back and forth. Should we do it in-house or should we do it, with the partner? How many people know how much a gummy machine costs in this world? Any guesses?
10.
$250,000 to $500,000 for a gummy machine. But guess what? I can just go to, I can go to some of our partners who have 30 years of confectionery experience. They have the resources, they have the time to do it, and I can almost sit back and just give them our we have a lot of distillate, a lot of isolate. We can send them our ingredients, we can send them our flavors, and they can create it for pennies on the dollar. So why should you use a CMO? For a lot of those particular reasons. Even on the grow side, we grew over 6 million pounds of hemp biomass last year. And a lot of those were with local farmers based on the seed that we utilized. So that's a lot of not only product to be able to harvest, we got to mill it, we got to be able to extract it, and we've been able to do that with a lot of partners, as well as in-house. There certainly is that component piece that goes along with it, but it certainly is important to know that there are groups out there you can work with. But that's the question I should have asked initially. But second, go ahead.
All I was just going to say is we don't do any manufacturing in-house. We actually do use contract manufacturing facilities. So we have a facility in Salem. We also have a facility in Tennessee. So we have various different facilities, and we're expanding and growing very quickly. And so having a manufacturer that, I love the fact that we're local. I love having a manufacturer here that I can rely upon to do the product right. They take our formulations, they take the ingredients that we provide, they do it right to spec, and then they give it back to us when it's ready to go. It's fully tested, ready, and we can then send it to our distribution centers and to the retailers. So having that in place, it's really great for us because we are great at marketing and we have the brand, but we don't handle manufacturing. Even though we have great formulations, it's better for us to not handle it directly. It makes a lot more sense.
Becomes full turnkey with some of these partners. And that's the next question, if you do consider moving forward with the CMO, what should you expect in signing an agreement or a contract with a contract manufacturer? In my opinion, the expectations for signing a contract are just like any other agreement. Ensure that the terms are obviously that they're protecting you. So having an operations person, having your legal counsel review a lot of this will make this happen. You need to determine every particular scenario. How are you going to get the ingredients? Who's taking the risk on production? What are they doing with your CBD or isolate or distillate or crude? How are they going to deal with excess? All those things need to be considered. But certainly, and then another great option is to have insurance. So crop insurance. I think anybody go to the Ben Thiel's little session today when he talked about crop insurance and being able to work. We actually have plenty of that because we have so many acres of product that we ultimately work with. All these options can be used to protect you, but you're certainly going to be getting a great partner at the end of the day. So, does that make sense on that part? The next question is, what about, if there's a concern of, well, what if I'm working with the CMO that's already producing a product that I am too? And always a concern, what happens if he's making a gummy and I'm making a gummy? But at the end of the day, it's really up to you how you want to protect your trade secrets, your ingredients. I think most CMOs at the end of the day don't really make a product that you do, at least the CMOs that we work with. But it's certainly something to think about, that your copyright, your everything you need to protect. Again, legal counsel is always advised, but most of your partners are just there. The CMOs are there to help you make your product at a very cost-effective price. So,
and that actually is a really good point when it comes to two different products. You have white label, the concept of white label, where they've already built the product and you're putting your label on it. Okay, that's what he's talking about. Whereas contract manufacturing or custom manufacturing, that's your product, that's your recipe. Manufacturer is not. I mean, you can set the terms, so you can set it to where they can't use your recipe, right? So you can either use their recipe or you can use yours, depending on the contract manufacturer.
Exactly. So from a domestic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. CMOs, I could talk about this forever, but at the same time, are there any people in the room that are shipping product out of the country? Anybody want to ship product out of the country? Gotcha. And so I'm a big fan of the CMOs, or contract manufacturers, helping us get product out of the country. So from a Canopy growth standpoint, we are currently in 10 different countries, including Latin America, South Africa, Australia. And believe it or not, we help our partners, or our partners help us create these products so we can get them prepped and ready to ship. And so, but one thing to note when you're actually, and it's great because our packaging can be in English, we can use the same type of pricing, but at the same time, one thing you need to be aware of is that the rest of the world is not like us. Here in the States, that 0.3 from the Farm Bill of the THC levels is quite different than the rest of the world. It's normally 0.1 or below. So you certainly need to be cognizant of how you're extracting your product, how you're getting that ready to put into the soft gels or tinctures or whatever you're working on. But at the same time, you still need to be cognizant that there could be challenges of product getting caught in customs, or just certainly having issues if it goes into other countries itself. So be warned, and rule of thumb before you ship any product out of the country, make sure you're getting payment up front to any groups that you're working with, because you want to make sure you're getting paid for that. So I'll quickly recap on the CMO side. 3 things that we talked about. It's really cost benefit. Save on your CapEx. If you want to work with the contract manufacturers, they have the technology, they have the experience, they can help you get it quicker to market. And certainly you can partner with groups that are organic, GMP certified. That's what, because we work, both of us really do work with a lot of the top retailers here in the US, and those certifications do count. The GMP or the CFR 110, the dietary supplements, or the 117. A lot of things that you should know that your partners or your CMOs can help you with.
Yeah, great. Well, at this time, do you want to open it up
Yeah.
for questions? I think it's a good time. We anticipated to have more time for questions. We had a feeling that would be the case, so we wanted to then open it up. If you have any questions for either one of us or both of us, if you don't mind, just raise your hand, and then we have you come up to the podium here. We want to get it recorded, so. Do we have any questions right now?
Any questions on cannabinoids? Anybody doing something new and cool that's
Well, this is kind of off topic.
Please use the microphone.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is off topic, but it has to do with terpene production and what are the benefits of what terpenes do for the atmosphere, and if there's some sort of market to be able to sell those as like a fix-all, in a sense, the way. One of the things is terpenes do act as the nuclei of water molecules in sorts of ways. It helps cleanse the atmosphere. What is it? The arboreal forest created most of the terpenes in the world at the time. It's half dead. This year we've seen an increase in the atmosphere because of the hemp production, and we've seen cleaner water coming out of it and stuff. And I was wondering if there's some sort of emerging market for that you've heard of, maybe farms just for the sense to grow for the terpenes.
That's interesting. I have not heard of that. The only example that I have is, we do a lot of tinctures, but we were just approached by a CMO himself that there was a tincture with CBD distillate in there and all terpenes, nothing else, no other botanicals or adaptogens, but it really did help drive that thought process of, hey, are there a lot more things that we can work with on just the terpene side? But it's, I think there certainly is a demand and a market for it, of course.
Maybe they'll develop some systems to get up there so we can easily extract it.
Yes.
Eventually, that's what I'm looking
It's
at.
very expensive at this point in time. Yeah.
When it comes to flavonoids, terpenes, anything like that, there is going to be a market for it. The issue that we're facing is consumer education. The average consumer across, now in Oregon it's a little bit different because we are a little more exposed to it here, but if you're looking for a national scale, most people don't even know what a terpene or a flavonoid is, just to be honest. In fact, most people still to this day, don't even know what CBD is. So it's an uphill battle. I love it. I think it's a great concept. We are 5 years too soon, honestly. We really are, for massive consumer understanding. Now, smaller markets, Oregon in particular, absolutely. If you want to market in Oregon and go that route, test the waters, get it going. It's a great way to test the markets, but do it locally. Don't plan on expanding that out nationally yet, because you're going to have a very difficult time getting to that level. And unfortunately, it's just the case.
A quick question regarding the cheat sheets, which are awesome.
Yes.
I agree with all of them. That's my understanding as well. Where did the data, or where were these produced?
Oh, I didn't put the links on there, but I can provide those to you. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, I'd go back to your point. Even to this day, I mean, I've been doing genetic testing. I've been doing lab testing on THC and CBD products for over 5 years now. And I think the number still holds true that 70% of people don't know the difference between THC and CBD, let alone my favorite, THCV and some of those, other compounds. So just be cognizant of that when you're creating your products, having, how you're educating your customers or your patients or people you're working with. Because at the end of the day, it's certainly going to help you sell more if customers better understand that, of how it works, how it operates, and having a long-standing customer is going to be great for all of us.
With no claims.
Well, no claims. CBD doesn't cure cancer.
It's great, buy it.
Yeah. And I certainly think that'll change too. But whether it's you're using it for, we broke it down by, we're talking about navigating the jungle. So when you talk about different brands or different client demographics, there's the 20 to 40-year-olds, which I think is really driven towards a lifestyle. So dealing with sports injuries or dealing with just relaxing, whether it's a vape, pre-roll joint, or a lot of the products. And then you have your 40 to 60, which I think is going to be more dealing with issues of inflammation, chronic pain, just wanting to feel better. And so work to identify those demographics, especially when you're promoting your products. CBD is obviously very universal, but still understand and know your audience.
I apologize, I came in a couple minutes late, but I'm just curious who these main CMO folks are, and what a grower might expect from some of their general contracts.
Yes. Just understanding that the terms need to protect yourself. I think that's real key. So from a grower standpoint, I think we had over 100 different growers that we worked with in order to take our seed. And we have our own lands and our own things that we work with, but take our seeds and then work within the cycle in order to produce products. So every group that we had worked with had a master services agreement. We understood how much potential loss there would be, how much growth, and what the expected output would be. If we say ideally we give you seeds and it should be at 80%, that's where the number needs to be. And believe it or not, our success rate was about 90% plus for most of the growers that we worked with, including Oregon. That we got a lot of great product to put into create what we needed to do. So, but a contract is very much needed and for the most part, the payment was done up front for a lot of growers. So something to consider based on having those fixed fees paid for up front.
Yeah, and with the contract, make sure, again, no matter what contract it is, no matter how good you are at contracts, you have to talk with an attorney. You have to, because there are certain words and phrases and things that are in the contracts potentially that could be harmful to you. A respectable contract manufacturer or anyone with a contract should not have that in there, but there are some predatory language statements that you have to be very careful of. So just keep that in mind. Definitely get legal counsel, because it's worth the cost. I know it's expensive, but it's worth the cost.
What else? Anything? Sure.
Okay, one thing I haven't heard you address is that I've worked with major retailers for almost 40 years in construction. I understand how they pay.
Mhm.
How do you expect payment, or what can you expect for payment from retailers should you get in their doors?
That's good.
That's a great question. So, they, depending on the retailer, the bigger they are, the more difficult they can be when it comes to payments. So I'll give you an example. One of our retailer accounts has net 45, 2% terms. So if you have, if they pay within 44 days, they're taking a 2% cut. If they pay at day 45 or after, when they're late, they're not supposed to take the cut. I will tell you, the retailers take the cut anyway. You know, when you're dealing with billion-dollar companies, and they could be 60 to 90 to 120 days, even if it's 45 days. And what they'll tell you is, if you try to argue with it, just be prepared to say, well, you don't have to be in our store. It's just the way that they are. They're great, but they're very difficult to work with. You have to be prepared for it. So financially, you have to cash flow it, and it can be very difficult to do. So just keep that in mind. The bigger the retailer, usually the harder it is to work with. I wouldn't recommend jumping onto Walmart anytime soon if you're small. But if you have $1 million in inventory ready to go at all times, yeah, okay, and talk to them. But just be prepared. The terms can be very tough. Working with a distributor can potentially ease things with some of the major ones, but going direct with some of them, they may require 6-month holdback. So what that means, what a holdback means is you sell, say, $1 million worth of product to a retailer. They will hold 100% of it back for 6 months worth of sales. So everything that they order for the next 6 months, they're not going to pay you a penny until you've proven yourself and established yourself as a brand. Okay? So yeah, it's not easy. It's worth it if you can cash flow it. And again, start small. Start with 50 to 150 chain retailers. They're a lot easier to work with usually. Build up. But honestly, think of retail, until you're big enough, think of retail as a marketing expense. Make sure you have a solid e-commerce base, and then as you're building, retail will be marketing for 3 to 5 years until you build that relationship and you've proven yourself that you can sell in retail, and then you should see a profit. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome.
Not always the best news, but
No, but I want to be honest. I want to be as transparent as we can be.
It's the same.
exactly. And the e-commerce play, I think, is the biggest thing as well. It depends. It's up to you if you want to go through third-party resellers or Amazon, but at the same time, really utilize your website to promote your brand, get the wording out there, get some great clinical studies or some just good knowledge base of how your product can perform and how it works. And again, the breakdown in demographics. What are you trying? Who's your audience? I think is the big thing that we've continued to focus on from a marketing standpoint.
Awesome.
I know you guys have mentioned topicals and gummies, but in the whole wide world of CBD products, in your professional opinions, what are the most popular or marketable products? And are there differences between online and retail stores, or between wholesale and retail?
Yeah, how much time do you have? That's a great question.
Then run the minutes
Yeah.
you can
So,
answer.
just because I get to dive into this world, if you have the resources, companies like IRI or Spins Data or Nielsen or BDS Analytics, it'll really give you insight into what markets are driving what. And you'll probably know better, but at least all the retailers that I speak with, I'd say 75% of the logoed brand names, topicals is on the top of their mind. They just can't do soft gels or tinctures or some of the ingestibles because it's still a little risky based on the FDA, any of those issues. So if they do sell ingestibles, tinctures by far is really a top of mind product that's ease of use and just really has a happy consumer at the end of the day. But Gummies certainly by far does quite well, something that really is easy to administer, and that's really where we do focus. And then again, by state. Each state is going to have a different type of attribute of what customers are looking for. And then finally, demographics. You're going to see a lot more of the tinctures and the ease of use products on the younger generation, and then more older is going to be a lot more higher dose on the milligram side, just for the chronic pain issues and dealing with just anxiety and some of those. At least that's what I see.
No, it's true. And you're right, it does differ depending on the retailer, depending on the state, depending on how you're selling it. So most retail, I'd say 96% to 98% of it, they're only doing topical across the board. And again, it has to do with what the FDA has said. Sublingual products, you're going to have a little more success with than any ingestible. So oil tinctures, mints, anything that can dissolve under the tongue or in the mouth, that's kind of this gray area. It's still not likely going to get you into most retail, but some are starting to open up to that concept, to that that kind of type of product. But anything, so there is a change coming. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's subtle and it's slowly changing to where retailers will start opening up more and more. I can't say who it is yet, but there is a retail chain that will launch later this year that will have, and they're a major chain, pretty big. They will have ingestible, at least sublingual products, some ingestible like gummies, but they will have tinctures, mints, other sublingual products. They're staying away from drinks, other foods, but even coffee. Although I'm sure some of you know this, but there is, for the first time, there's going to be a Super Bowl ad for CBD, a coffee company that's doing a Super Bowl ad this Sunday, so it's exciting. I think they're doing 3 spots. So it's changing. It's just, we're not quite there yet. So for retail, absolutely stay topical. The balms, the creams, they sell the best. Roll-ons are next. And then obscure products, like, I don't know, if you make a face and hand cream or certain lotions, and they're higher end, stick with like beauty products, stick with the beauty category. But as for online, oil tinctures are still the #1 seller. Gummies are also up there too. Those are the 2 big ones. So, yeah.
You gentlemen ever do work with eBay in any way, shape, or form? Because I loved it whenever I got online and you could go online and buy all the flour you wanted, and I was just like, well, is there any legitimacy to that?
Yeah, we actually have products on eBay. I don't know how they're up there, but somebody's selling our products on eBay. I don't get that. It's just very strange. We don't sell directly though, but our products are strange.
Have they ever contacted you and been like, hey, or no?
We're not sure, to be honest. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they have a pretty strict policy, no CBD of any kind. So I don't know how they get away with it, but same thing with Amazon. I mean, you can be on Amazon, but just be prepared. You're likely going to get shut down within 6 months. If you do Amazon and you want to risk it, that's perfectly fine. Start with 1 or 2 products. Be very small. Sell other things that are not just CBD. Don't say CBD, of course. Say hemp oil. Don't even say hemp extract. They have trigger words that they'll pick it up and they'll just remove it from the site. So.
Yeah, I think that's a rule of thumb across the board for any, the Amazons and different, different websites of the world. So just watch where your product's going, to be honest, because that sounds like a third-party opportunity. I did that for 10 years, just Amazon issues and eBay, .coms of the world.
5-star account, I'm sure everybody would
Of
watch
course.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Great.
Any other questions? Yeah. Yes.
In terms of marketing, when do you see a shift in being able to market on different social platforms or just through Google Ads? Is that going to be something that we're going to have to wait for the FDA on, or do you think it's more company-based when they decide to do the research?
I actually think it's company-based. It is. From what I've seen, at least trend-wise, and you can probably answer this too, but I just having experience with this, you know, when you're advertising on Facebook or Google, just be prepared, you know, for the worst case scenario. So prepare in advance. Again, that's why I say create a separate page, create a separate account if you have to, whatever you need to do. Call it, you know, your brand and then topicals, or your brand and, you know, health, wellness, whatever you need to do. That's the safest way. That way you don't get blacklisted on your main site, on your main account. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
So I'd just like to mention that we might want to be careful threading the needle with truth in advertising when we're trying to use terminology that doesn't say CBD, but uses terms like hemp extract or whatever. For instance, hemp seed coffee with hemp seed in it, is very different than coffee with CBD.
Totally agree.
And so, you know, all of us have been able to buy hemp hearts and food that has hemp in it. That doesn't mean it has CBD in it. But if we're trying to create associations, using words that are not going to be trigger words for regulatory, but we think that people will kind of assume that that's got the CBD in it, and yet it doesn't. And so that's just something to, I think, to be aware of.
Completely agree.
Yeah, in fact, we've actually had a couple of customers that have come to us and said, hey, I bought this hemp oil on Amazon and I haven't been able to get any effects. It was, I spent $200 on this oil tincture and $150 on this dog tincture, and nothing works. And my dog's still hyper, or whatever the case is. And we looked at the ingredients, 100% hemp seed oil. They took hemp seed oil, this giant, you know, gallon jug that you can buy for $60 for a gallon of it, and they sell it a 1 ounce bottle for $200. I mean, it's just crazy. So, absolutely agree with you completely. You have to be really careful where you're buying the product, and so having the transparency. That's why I don't like selling on Amazon. I think until they open it up, you know, play the game smart, play it fair. You know, have good products. I mean, realistically, that's the best way to stand out. Have good products, stand by your products, get third-party tested, do all the things you have to do. Stay compliant, and then people will become loyal.
Great.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there any advantage to having like a grass study?
That would be amazing. I'm sure you saw some of the press releases that CBD has not been approved for, CBD products not been approved for any grass studies. Anybody who doesn't know, grass is generally recognized as safe from an FDA standpoint, and so that continues to be a battle. We were actually on a list, for my prior company, we were on a list of getting that done and paying our $10,000 to $20,000 to really have that status, but unfortunately that's on hold for now. But yeah, I think as we move forward, that's going to be pretty key, especially from a final product standpoint, that CBD and the quality behind it is going to be, and classified as generally recognized as safe. And that goes hand in hand with the FDA for the most part.
You know, just like any other new industry, it's a 5 to 7 year process. We are on year 2. I mean, realistically, they passed the bill in December of 2018. We're still dealing with a lot of things that we were dealing with in 2018, 2017 even. So just keep in mind, eventually all of these things are going to open up, and we're going to have the studies. The companies that can afford it are going to have the studies done. So it takes time. You know, fast forward 5 to 7 years, we'll be having a different conversation, but it's going to take time.
Great.
Awesome. Great.
All right, that help you guys weed through the jungle a little bit?